and welcome back to another video. My name is Caitlin and today we're going to do some science. Yes! So what science are we going to do exactly? Well, we're going to look at some Bruvs. So Bruvs stands for Baited Remote Underwater Video Station. What is the point of a Bruvs? What is a Bruvs? Please tell me. Well, essentially, the point of a Bruvs is to do fish surveys. Are there more fish in an area that's protected, or are there more fish in an area that's not protected? What kinds of fish are in an area, and what kind of diversity is there? So those are various questions that you can ask with using a Bruvs. Now, what is a Bruvs? Well, let me show you. We decided to make our own Bruvs out of things we found from Bunnings. So you've got two spice racks here that we've just zip tied together, and we've decided to use a couple of my dive weights as well to zip tie into the inside of the Bruvs. That's essentially the box and the cage. That's going to be the main anchor and support for our Bruvs. So essentially that goes down at the bottom and that's our weight. It's not very big. We want to sort of make it makeshift and portable so we can try it out in different areas without too much trouble, because right now we're in the stage of experimentation, proof of concept. Can we do this? Are there any little nitpicks or tweaks we need to make to our little Bruvs? So we put the two spice racks together, the weights are on, and then we need a pole with a little net bag on it. So we put it all together and we then decide, all right, cool. Let's go out and join us on the journey of how we experimented with the Bruvs. So, a Bruvs was initially made by AIMS, which is a research organization in Australia, for the very reason to survey fish. So, right now we're just doing proof of concept. We're not doing anything too scientific. The methodology is put some bait in the bag and put it in the water, see what happens. Our first trip we go out and it's pretty much the lowest of low tide. We're going to see what happens. So the first thing we do is we drop it off the side of a jetty. And down she goes. Goodbye. And we put it to the bottom. And once you put it to the bottom, the visibility is 0. So we're like, all right, cool. This isn't going to work. So we pull it up so it's in the middle of the water, and there's a little bit of visibility so you can see the end of the arm on the Bruvs with a little nest of bait in it. We had 0 action that first time. So then we were thinking, what did we do wrong? Was it the tide? Was it the bait? Was it anything else? So for the first one, we experimented with pilchards as our bait. And the pilchards weren't enticing enough for the fish to come up to the bait or to the camera. Mind you, a severe limitation on doing Bruvs inshore where we live is that the visibility is almost always going to be bad. It's just a limitation that we have to deal with for now, but once we go out to the Great Barrier Reef or we go out further, we'll have much better visibility, but I'd rather get all the tweaks done and learn a few things before taking it on a trip and then going, oh, that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Well, that is the venture we're going on now. So why didn't it work? We had a couple of ideas. Perhaps the fish didn't like the pilchards. Perhaps it was low tide and the fish don't go after food in low tide. Maybe there's not a lot of action when there's low tide. Maybe there was just so much algae and poor visibility and no water movement that the smell of the pilchards never got far enough for a fish to be attracted to it. We don't know. So all we do is try something different. So then we go up north to Port Douglas. And in Port Douglas, we do a similar thing. We have our little Bruvs set up and we put it in the water with some pilchards. So we have it sitting in the middle of the water because last time we thought, well, the bottom had zero visibility, so what's the point of putting it at the bottom? So we had it in the middle about, I think the max depth was probably about 3 to 5 meters, so we put it at 2 meters depth. And we just sat there and we had a look and we didn't see a lot of action, so we're like, you know what? Why not just put it at the bottom? Let's see what happens when you put it at the bottom. So it goes down to the bottom and boop! Suddenly, after 30 seconds of it being at the bottom, after 10 minutes, 20 minutes of it being like suspended in the midwater, we have a big fish. Oh my gosh, what is this? We found out it was a reticulated puffer, but we'll get back to that. So we're like, whoa, that's so cool. We've actually got something now. We actually see a fish. Yes, it's a victory. Science is working. So then we decided that perhaps at the bottom is where it's at. So at the end of that, we packed up and we came back with our thoughts. Okay, so there was success at the bottom, but even then, the fish didn't seem to like the pilchards too much, which is strange because pilchards are nice and oily. You'd think it'd attract a lot of fish, but we didn't get a lot of success with that. So then, next time we go out, we go back to the first place, and I go as it's coming into high tide. So I think, all right, cool. I spoke to a couple of fishermen at that jetty last time, and they mentioned that they use a specific kind of bait to get fish, and they use pretty much garlic chicken. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll make some garlic chicken. So I cut up a chicken breast, cut up some garlic, put some salt on it, and just like that. And then we put that chicken into the little basket, threw it down, and I waited half an hour. So generally I've been waiting half an hour stints. Usually with Bruvs, the scientific methods seem to favor the 1 hour mark, but due to just me trying to figure out what works and what doesn't, I've kept it to half an hour until I'm really happy with the methodology that we've come up with. So then, yeah, we put it down, pull it up, and then when I pull it up, there's no bait there. And I'm like, oh no, maybe I didn't fasten it up tight enough. I was a little bit disheartened that I thought all the bait had just floated out and I wasn't going to get anything on the Bruvs. But then, yo, check this out. Look at those fish! There's hundreds of stripies! Oh my goodness, I've never seen so many fish ever. To come out of that thinking I didn't get anything, to realizing that these fish had managed to eat the bait through the net. And wait, what's this? Oh my gosh, it's like Majora's Mask. There's this huge reticulated puffer that's come to investigate what's going on. And the cool thing is about the puffer is that when it comes in, all the stripies disappear, and you're like, whoa, what are you doing? And it comes right up to the GoPro, and you get some awesome shots of our friend the reticulated puffer. I feel like I'm going to say reticulated python, so I should be careful about that. So then, after that, I was very excited and very encouraged. So the parameters that seemed to be successful were, I actually did put it on the bottom again. So it feels like putting it at the bottom is the way to do it, at least at these coastal shoreline areas. So then I'm like, cool, let me try this one more time. So we go to a different spot yet again, and I've spoken to some fishermen saying they've got some pretty cool stuff off there. So it's been a few really good days, blowing less than 5 knots wind. So I thought, all right, let's try putting it there. The visibility should be good enough to pick up on some cool stuff. And let's see. So we put it in after clambering over some rocks. And we decide to have 2 samples in this area. One in a more shallow bay area and one in a deeper bay area. So we put them in, it's peak high tide, and so that means there's hardly any water movement at all, but it also means that it's very clear at the moment. Well, very clear is a relative term in coastal tropical North Queensland. I just want to clear that up. Very clear means you may be able to see the bottom at 3 meters depth. So we put them in and we wait. And I got a few cuts and bruises, but that's okay. That's the point of science. We're meant to get ourselves wet and dirty and see what we can find. So, interestingly enough, when we did it, not a lot of interest. We did see a couple of fish swim past. They weren't attracted to the bait. So, we were like, okay, so those are the fish that are just living there and just so happen to pass. And I just want to make note of the limitation of the visibility. So at that time, Carlos was there and he was flying his drone and he saw a turtle swim pretty much right in front of the Bruvs. Unfortunately, the visibility was so bad, even in the pristine conditions, that we couldn't see the turtle on the Bruvs, which is disappointing. But you could see that there can be some really big things coming past, but unless they go right in front of the camera, we won't see it. So that is a big limitation on the Bruvs and poor visibility. It also seemed that the fish were terribly uninterested in chicken bait. So that's something else to think about. And in the shallow area, we pull it out and we put it in the deep area, where, as we put it in, we just see millions of little shrimp. It must be a safe little place for them to hang out and chill. And there will be points in this video, whilst you're watching the Bruvs, that there's so many shrimp, we can't see anything past the shrimp. You might see a shadow, but I can't tell what that shadow is because there's a cloud of shrimp in the way. It's hilarious. But obviously that's where they live, and that's important to them. So you found that there is a little coastal habitat for this species, which is good to see. And now we find some shadows that we're going to identify. And some of them can be quite hard. But to identify them, we pull out this book, Reef Fish Identification. Obviously, there will be fish in the water that aren't in this book, but it's a good reference guide. At least we can probably get something to the genus or family level. So to use this book, what we do is we open it up and we find the sort of shapes and the orders of the fish. So you can see, let's talk about that reticulated puffer we saw. So we're going to look through the start and look for the body shape. So they're not disc, they're not ovals, they're not large ovals. The puffers have a very distinct shape. So we're going to flip through until we find the puffers, which are right there. Whoa, trippy. Alright, so the puffers are there. So it says odd-shaped swimmers 408 to 439. So we go to 408, which is over here. And you can see it goes through all the odd-shaped bodies. And then we look for our friends. So these don't look like our puffer friend at all. They look more like cowfish. So we keep on going. You can see sort of getting closer, but these guys are a bit more box-shaped than our friends. You can have a look here. These are goatfish. And this guy here is one of the goatfish that we see in some... in the last experiments. We keep flipping, we keep flipping, we keep flipping. Okay, we go to triggerfish. We're sort of getting closer, but we're still not quite there. Where are the puffers? Alright, so now, whoa, okay, come on, lights. So now we're in the odd-shaped fishes looking at puffers. So it's like it looks kind of close to this guy, but not quite, because he had all those crazy lines over his face. Looks very similar to this guy as well. Initially, I thought it was either a star puffer or a matte puffer, but I think we can all agree it's the reticulated puffer here. You can see that He's got all those lines around his eyes, looks super crazy, looks like something straight out of Majora's Mask. Yep, I'm pretty happy to say that that guy there is a reticulated puffer. You can have a look at all the other ones. That one's kind of close, but it's still, the eye's very different to that. So we just use this book as a resource there. So now that we know what's there, by identifying the fish, we go through, and sometimes it's just not possible to be able to identify the fish. It could just be a shadow, and some fish are identified by their colors. So I can say, well, this is definitely a surgeonfish over here, but I can't tell you what kind of surgeonfish it is. And so we do our best to identify the stuff in the conditions that we have, but this is sort of a proof of concept of how Bruvs works and how to get the most out of it. So we can count the fish numbers and then compare them to different areas. So if we want to do like a mock test, we can say, how are the fish populations different between shallow and deep areas? And we can say, well, there's thousands of shrimp in the deep area and not so much in the shallow area. But then you need to do lots of other experiments as well to confound that, to say, well, you only find shrimp in these deep areas or depths between these ranges. But this is just proof of concept. This is going to open up a lot of doors for research and science, especially looking at the Great Barrier Reef. In the end, I would like to be able to have a look at fish population differences in reefs that are protected from fishing and not protected from fishing. See what's different. See if there's a skew in certain animals or not. I want to have a look at fish populations where tourism's involved. Are fish attracted to boats because of tourism, because some people feed fish? Has that got a negative influence over the overall reef that they've been fed in? All questions that I will look into the future. But now I can say very confidently that the Bruvs was a success. And we're still learning, but thank you for joining me on this journey, because it's been a lot of fun and I'm very excited for the future potential of our Bruvs. Thank you very much for listening. It's been awesome spending this time with you, and until next time, have a good one. Bye!